Howdy, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the ComicBase Livestream. This is Livestream number 40. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. We're coming to you from beautiful Franklin. I'm not going to say California this time. Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. Anyway, I would encourage everyone, please have a look at the comments on YouTube if you're watching it there. And like and subscribe to the show. Hit the little alarm bell so you get notified when we're doing new things. And also, please post any comments or questions you have in the chat. That's what I'll be watching as I go through the stream to find out what to talk about after I get done with the things I mean to be talking about. Okay, so we missed last week. I apologize for that, guys. It couldn't be helped. It was just things were really piling up in my neck of the woods, and also I was waiting on two very big things to appear. One was I was waiting for the switcher that I had on order from Blackmagic Design for the last month or so to actually show up at my door. It finally did, thank God, because that really decomplicated my live stream setup here. Also, it allowed me to get 4 more inputs so that I can show you all the things I want to show you today. The other thing I was waiting for are the various app stores to approve the newest version of the ComicBase mobile app, which I will be showing off today at long last, and hopefully, it's some cool stuff. So hopefully you'll dig it. All right, so quick check just to make sure everything's good. Hopefully all you can hear me sounds good on stuff like that. Feels like it's a little more consistent than before, but let me know if it's too high, too low, how it sounds on your end of things. I also, one thing I want to watch out for, we had some problems before with the live stream stuttering. I thought the key would be turn down the bitrate, and now YouTube's telling me, no, we actually wanted you to send us more data. And so I'm turned it up to streaming high now. I think the internet connection is going to keep up with it, and it should be all good. So hopefully it's all good, but please post how it looks in the chat so that I have some kind of feedback on how that's going. All right. Hail to Richard Scott. We'll be chatting about your date report thing later on. Also, Rob, Nicaea, Greg, Mike, as well as always, Oro, Mike Beam, the whole, and John P. Excellent. Great to see everyone again. And I apologize, by the way, for the false alarm. Yesterday, I stuck the wrong date in the stream, so for a couple hours, if you were getting a note saying that we were going to be streaming in a couple minutes at 4 o'clock, that was all on me. And so yes, check the dates before you post live stream notifications, Bickford. That's important hint, pro tips as they were. Okay, let's see here. Am I the one hearing P on a single channel only coming in through my left side, not the right? Interesting. It sounded okay on the headphones to me, but let me have a quick look at the switcher's audio, because there's about 83,000 more connections for me to adjust things on than there were before, and they sounded good in the headphones to me earlier. And on my monitors it looks good, but it should be a monophonic signal, but dual monophonic, so I don't know. Let me know. Mike says he's got left, right. My monitor's saying I'm putting out left, right, so I don't know, man. Anyway, but another thing for me to get all mental about. All right, on with the show. Okay, so let's see here. First of all, let me show you a little bit about what I got going on. I'll show you, I've got the over at camera shot. I should be able to show you. This is what the studio looks like to me. Whoops, wrong one. Let's go with that guy right there. Sorry, that was my chroma key. So this is just my immediate desk area. Those are my hands. And this is the new switcher. This is the ATEM Mini Extreme here with an 8 different channels of input going in. This is the bottom of my monitor glowing in the background. This is the little tiny studio monitor where I actually can watch the show myself as I'm doing it and attempt vainly to hit the right input as I'm trying to get everything going here. And now that I've done it, I'm probably going to switch my chroma key now that I have more channels to something that I'll never hit accidentally, like channel 8. But the thing I'm really excited about is that I now have got inputs for my Mac if I want to show anything involving Mac OS stuff, and who knows, there could be Mac OS stuff to talk to at some point. I've got a little media player here on number 6, so I can do things like playing little animated show intros and things like that. I've got an Apple TV on number 7, and I've got a Chromecast, which finally is working on number 8. And those are what I'm going to be using to show the different displays. Also, number 2 here that's of course the computer view you guys are used to. Another thing that's kind of fun to do over here, let's go back to me, and then I think if I go here and I switch down to here, I might not be able to do this while I'm keying, but I'll get. Let's go here. So yes, I can actually now talk over my own picture-in-picture as we're going here. So yeah, we as you might have noticed from back here, there's a lot of buttons to press over here, and that's not even counting the Stream Deck I've got over here with all the different macros that I can program into that one. I have not gotten done programming all the macros for the new studio setup, but yeah, there's a lot of foo going on here. So anyway, let's see if I can mangle my way through it. All right, so let's see here. Audio. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. All right, so on to the show. Let's talk about other stuff here. So first of all, the mobile app, as I said, is approved in both stores. So whether you have iOS or Android, do go ahead and download the latest version of ComicBase Mobile. It's should say version 2.0 in the About box. It'll say 2.0.3 if you're looking at the store. There is honestly the difference between 2.03 and 2.0 is the updating of the About box. Like the app submission process is more convoluted than you can possibly imagine unless you've had to submit an app yourselves, and honestly it wasn't worth it for me to submit it again to get the visible version number and the About box in sync. You know, at that point I'd gone through weeks of frustration with both app companies, which strangely enough Android was the ones who were being a pain in the butt more than Apple. Apple's infamous for this. I mean, they drive developers to absolute madness. But usually Android is damn near on rails as far as allowing you to put the stuff in the store. And what seems like with COVID, they've just de-staffed or done something where they've really ramped back the response time. So it was taking the better part of a week to get any kind of response out of them at all. And we didn't have any problems with the tech of the app at all, but man, it was hard getting the app stores to just hit the different approval and rollout processes just to let it all out. But do go ahead if you're running let's say iOS or Android on your tablet. Make sure you if you have the ComicBase app installed before, make sure you hit the auto update, because there's a major feature bump between the 2.0 version and the 1.04 or whatever we had before, and I'll be showing you that. All right, quick check of the chat. It's a sweet setup, Pete. Excellent. Oh, and let me also make sure I've got the keying on so you can see chat comments. Let's try that again. There we go. Nice. All right. Yeah, Pete's getting pro. Yeah. It'd be really cool. It'd be really cool if I had a producer in here, and at some point I'm going to have to draft one in there, because we are getting to the point where we have enough weird stuff going on here that no way am I going to be able to talk to you guys and manage all this stuff by myself. All right, so yeah, and don't worry if you're looking at the About box and it says 2.0. If the App Store says 2.02 or 2.03, you're just fine. All right, so let's get on to the whole deal. You guys might remember, I talked to you a little while back about, I took a trip to Florida because I had gotten done with the ComicBase 2021 release. We, handled all the follow-up, gone through the Christmas season, whatever else, and I just needed to get out of Dodge for a week. So I took a big driving trip around Florida, and the very first thing I did is I drove down, if you're in, my neck of the woods, if you drive straight south down 65, you wind up in Birmingham, Alabama, and if you keep on driving south, you wind up in Destin, Florida. And that's where I was, that was my destination for the day. Anyway, what I did to stop for kind of a late dinner at that point was I was in Birmingham, grabbed my refilled the car, grabbed myself something to eat, and I noticed across the parking lot there's a place called Ollie's Discount Bargain Warehouse. I'm like, never heard of this before. I thought, well, hey, it's vacation. Let me stop in and try, just go someplace new. This ought to be the theme for my next week, I figured. So I walked in, and to my great surprise, this place that looked like just a five and dime, kind of, bargain bin store had an enormous selection of comics and books and graphic novels and things like that, particularly graphic novels. They were apparently all the shelf stock, warehouse overruns for every graphic novel Marvel and DC put out in the last million years, as well as a lot of people putting out bundled comics in something that's a real callback to my youth. They'd have the poly bagged, 10 comics for $1 or 5 comics for $5, 10 comics for $10, kind of mystery box kind of deal. And I thought, well, this is kind of neat. Let's try some of this. But one of the first things I saw in the up on the shelf was I saw the DC Action Archive, Superman in Action Archives edition, number 5, which these are like $50 books, and they were for sale for like $8. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is a great deal, but what if I've already got it? And I thought, well, hey, no problem at all. I've got my handy dandy ComicBase app. I'll just open the thing up, go to my S's, scroll down through the S's, and find Superman Action Comics Archives, and then I'll know whether I've got it or not, and I'll know whether I should buy the comic. And to my great chagrin, something happened to me that has actually been reported to other customers, but it's like, it's different when you get bit by the same problem that, you know, you've had reported on odd times. And that is, your phone has a very limited amount of memory devoted to things like web browsers. And my phone at the time decided that as it was loading the S portion of my collection, I have about 60,000 books, that the S's, as you guys might know, take about 3 times, they're about 3 times larger just numerically than any other title, any other letter in the alphabet in terms of how many comics and things like that will be associated with it. You know, because you have the Star Wars, the Sandman, you know, the Super this, the Super the other thing, it goes on and on and on, how many titles are stuck under S. So anyway, it got to the part where S is, and I got it, and I was in a place with a lousy internet connection, you know, showed me the first couple pages, and then it just ground to a halt. It wouldn't scroll far enough, and I'm like, son of a... You know, I cannot believe I just got bit by, you know, the thing where, like, when people would call up beforehand and say, you know, hey, my phone won't handle my collection, you know, I'd be like, well, you know, it's kind of like, well, I have sympathy, but I'm just opening up a web view. I'm just showing your collection in a web browser. It's kind of like, well, get a better phone. It was kind of like, you know, the thing you're thinking but you don't want to say. And it happened to me. And so it's like, well, crap. And so I sit there and I let the Superman Action Archives, you know, number 5 sit there on the shelf as I sit there and I, you know, get back in the car, and I've got a lot of hours over the next week to think, well, geez, if I was going to solve this problem for real and not just have people have their reports on their phone and have to scroll through the reports in order to find out what they've got, how would I handle it? And it came to some, what really comes down to a fairly dramatic conclusion, which is the experience you want. And you know, it really helps if you sit there and you say, well, look, what do I want my end result to be, and then how would I reverse engineer the magic trick to get there, right? And what I really wanted in that moment is I wanted to open up my phone. I wanted to either point, you know, the barcode scanner at the book and have it say whether I've got it or not, or if it's worth $50. Now, the looking it up and point the barcode scanner and see, is this worth, you know, X amount, that part was already in the program. That works great. But I wanted to tell me, well, do I have it? How many copies do I have? Well, for me to do that, we'd have to do something we've never done before, which is we need to start storing not just the data about comics in general, not just, you know, all 900, you know, some thousand comics in the world. We have to start storing all the information on your comics. So when you send us a database stuff, you know, everything, we don't just generate a bunch of reports and then, you know, shove the thing back in a closet with your name on it, you know, and let you go and access your reports under a sealed lock, which is kind of how the current system is. We'd have to also make a note of what you got in some kind of database that we can search on demand through the app, so that we can say, oh, hey, you know, Bob over here is looking for whether or not he has Sandman number 23. Okay, let me look at Bob's collection, and yeah, he's got number 22, number 21. No, he's missing 23. It would cost about, you know, $7 if you wanted to get it, but he's got 29 through through 40 or something. We'd have to have that information stored on our server. And the very first thing I thought of that was, man, we're crossing a lot of lines that we've always kind of been very hands off on about that one. We're like, we've always been kind of like, just, we don't store your data. I mean, that was just, you know, we just have never been in that business. We didn't want to get into the business of it. We didn't want to be somebody who, at any point in time, you know, you were kind of renting your own data back from us. I mean, it's like, no, we figure your data is yours, and the way you know it's yours is because it only lives on your computer, and we only have like maybe a copy of it, or an image of it, or reports from it if you save it to our cloud, and then you're viewing the access, you know, from our cloud of your stuff. And that's still the way that works, but we're going one step further, where what we're doing is, okay, still, when you log in, you can see in a database format some information from your database, which is way better for us than, you know, going and looking in a file folder with your name on it. you know, and locked down by you, and looking at pre-programmed reports that we had, because among other things, it lets us do the thing I really want, which is to start typing Superman in get a result for Superman in Action Comics, and then see, okay, Superman Action Comics ran the 8 issues, and here's all the issues, and those ones right over there are the ones I've got. That's what I want to have happen at the end of the day. It just makes us take on a lot of work to make that happen for you. The other thing I realized very quickly is that in addition to having to, like, okay, geez, we actually have to start, looking through people's, inventory and databasing in some way that we can get to on demand, so that we can service these queries if they might be sending off on the mobile phone. The other thing I'm realizing is that we're going to need a much buffer database server, because we actually had been using really kind of the minimalist version of SQL Server, which SQL Server, if you've ever looked into it, it's Microsoft's mainline database program, and fully configured, it is just astonishingly expensive. I mean, we're talking mid to high 5 digits to get a fully configured instance of SQL Server. And we'd been working with something that was way less expensive to get the install on that one. And we were able to do it because we'd very, very carefully figured out, okay, well, what are all the things that we need to store in our database, and can we live within the limitations that it's presenting for us? And it turned out that, yeah, actually we can, as long as we don't try to do anything stupid like, I don't know, storing all the users' databases. Well, okay, by the time the trip was over, and I'd had thousands of miles, of driving to think on this problem and how to solve it, by the time the trip was over, I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna get home. I'm gonna spend some money, because what it really was going to require is it was going to require us buffing up our database server, getting into a much higher spec version of the SQL Server to allow us to have unlimited data storage size on our end. We already had a metric shed load, as the Brits would say, of disk storage. We have disk arrays, RAID arrays backed up down, in 15 different ways a Sunday. Because remember, one thing that we are storing on your behalf is we're storing your concrete databases. When there's 2 gigabytes dedicated to every user, so that we are storing, when you back up to our cloud, we'll save that information to our cloud, and then that in return gets mirrored to various backup services, so that even if the place burns down, where our servers are at, we can restore from another place in time. So we'd already made the investment in raw disk space. But the database server was a new thing. So I figured out, okay, yeah, we've got to do that. And then the next thing we've got to do is we've got to start getting the infrastructure in place on our end to allow us to, when you save a database, when you save a database to the cloud, to allow us to parse through your database, store off in your own dedicated area an image of the things you have in stock in your database, which then allows us to not only pull your reports in a much faster fashion than going back and forth between your MySQL databases, these little standalone files like you've got on your disk, on your own hard disk. We used to do this crazy thing where in order to generate pre-generate your reports, we'd be looking at our server with all of its 700,000 pictures. We'd be looking at your database, and your database would say things like, hey, I'd like to have a collection report of my collection. And if you're me, you've got 60,000 things in your collection, give or take, which means the report kind of comes down to, okay, look at my database over here, and every time I say I want to see a picture of this image over here, you have to go over to the server on your end, tell me what the picture is over there, and get a reference to that one on your server, and then go ahead and encode that into something that I can view as a fixed report, and do that 60,000 times. It's actually even a little worse now when you get into the fine points of it, but it was a ridiculous amount of work for our server to do in order to have these databases utterly independent of each other. Whereas if what we do is, if we take your data of your things that are in stock in your database, and we pour that into a table in our master database, again, dedicated to your stuff only, it doesn't go out to anyone else. But if we do that, then comparing on the server between those two tables, incredibly rapid. So much so that we're able to generate the reports that you do see in the app about 50 times faster than we were doing it the old-fashioned way. But now, the most important thing you get to do, and now it's finally time to actually show you the app a little bit, is we can actually answer the "Does Pete have Superman in Action Comics Archives #5" question. And it goes a little something like this. Okay, quick check here. Let's see here. Yeah, if Pete, yeah, like Greg says, yeah, if Pete followed his own advice, got a better phone, never gotten the upgraded app. So true. Honestly, if I'd had my damn tablet with me, none of this would have happened. You know, if either my Android tablet or my iPad were with me, they would open the whole thing up, no problem at all. No, it was just having my dang old phone with me that made this even happen. Compliment says, am I up to petabytes yet? Not quite, but we're not a million miles away. Okay, and Compliment says, it sounds like someone's about to get in the business storing clients' data. Yeah, sadly, we are. Yeah, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I don't love this. It's, you know, but I mean, look, I also want to say two things. One is the fundamental bargain of buying ComicBase remains unchanged, which is to say, when you buy ComicBase, we're going to try during the course of the year that, you know, we bundle a year worth of updates with us. We're going to try our damnedest to make it so that at the end of that year, you sit there and say, well, geez, renewing my subscription next year is the most rational thing I could possibly do. I absolutely want to keep doing this. But if you decide, well, I don't know, I'm not into collecting this year, yeah, other things have come up, I'm not feeling the love, whatever the thing is, if you stop, you know, renewing your subscription, the program still keeps running. You still got access to your data, and you don't lose access to your own stuff because it's on your machine. And there's no check in the program which says, oh wait, he let a subscription expire, we'll shut down the program. That doesn't happen. The only thing that you lose at the end of, if you don't, you know, renew your subscription, is you lose access to our stuff, you know. So you don't get new updates, you don't get access to the mobile features that we're serving on our server, but everything else keeps running the same way it ever did. So that part of the bargain is fundamentally the same. The other thing it is fundamentally unchanged is, honestly, we use your data purely to service your requests. We are not sifting through your data, we're not marketing your data, we're not selling your data, we're not doing a damn thing with your data that we weren't doing before, which is to say, we look at it long enough to generate reports, and then we get the hell out of Dodge with it. You know, so you know, don't expect us to be doing anything new with that one. And if we ever decide to do something like that, you will be getting a hell of a lot of notice about it. And you know, if we ever decide to get into this, you know, freaky business of essentially saying, yeah, okay, your data lives in our cloud and only in our cloud, and you know, you're running it back to us, which honestly, just even saying those words out loud kind of makes my skin crawl. So you can see how much I really don't want to be in that business. But if we ever do that, we will give you a crap ton of notice, and you know, we'll cut you a completely different deal than you've got right now. But you know, the deal we made with each other, where your data is yours, that stays the same. We're not touching that. We're just giving you the ability to do more stuff with the data that you shared with us. Basically, we're letting you see it in different ways that you weren't able to see it before. All right, enough of that stuff. Greg says, when a box pops up says downloading, you're downloading Archie 101, not a valid image, delete it. Should I say yes or no? I've been saying yes. Let me get to that one in just a minute. I do want to do the demo, but I want to tell you a little bit about the latest stuff in ComicBase. It will solve that problem for you as well. Let's see here. With the great news that we're occasionally seeing mono reflections in your glasses. Honestly, you saw them before. What the difference on that one is if you look at my let me see if I can, I don't know if the overhead's going to give you enough of a view in it, but if we do. So there is a ginormous monitor. It's a 27-inch monitor right here, and there's another one right off on this side, and then there's a camera monitor staring me in the face. You can't see any reflections off this monitor because it's pointing at my chest. That's why that one's down. But every time I bend my head down, you're always going to pick up a little bit off my glasses. That's just the reflection of light. What you're actually doing is you're getting a reflection off of anything I've got that's actually light colored. So it's one of the reasons that I actually went and I dimmed down like my background. So that should be like a lot better than it was 2 seconds ago, because now most of what's coming off these monitors is black, which is in a strange way it's becoming part of why I would do like the dark color schemes, is just for my own self-preservation. I want to be able to move my head from side to side occasionally, not just stare fixed into the camera like a psychopath, and not have you just be completely blinded by monitor glare. If I wasn't running a freaking computer company where I need large monitors around me all the time, I would probably do what all the people in your favorite podcasters do, where I have a very tasteful little laptop kept right below eye level, so it, down a point where like you can glance down on it and it would never reflect that light back up at your glasses. But honestly, the only way that we're going to get these podcasts to happen is if I could leave my desk set up more or less the way it's going to be before showtime and get work done right up until 5 minutes before showtime, because otherwise, if I had to have a separate studio for this whole thing, this would just never happen. So, but I will try to keep that dim. I did have a few, kind of white windows up ahead of time, and that's just because I wanted to have my show notes and other things like that, but I'll try to control that. Thanks for the heads up on that. All right. And Greg, I will also talk about the 50 at the same time. We'll sort that one out. Okay, Jeff says, if there's a choice to not save my data in servers if I don't want to, absolutely. Just don't save it to the cloud. That's it. It's if you save it to the cloud, you're explicitly sending us your data. That's how we save a big copy of it. On the it is a big coherent file on our server, and we also, if you say generate reports, we're going to open up those files and port into our database, generate reports, and also populate the mobile app. But if you don't want any of that stuff, just don't save to cloud, and we don't have your stuff. Okay, let's see. ERB 1211 says, Pete, can you expand upon what exactly happens when you say lock notes don't allow the update to add new info when it's checked and unchecked in the ComicBase Sidekick settings? Yeah, so the default on notes, and I want to get back to the mobile app, that's kind of the start of the show, but I'll answer this one real quick. Notes are one of those fields that by default stack. So it's one of those things where it's a little bit exclusively your field, and it's a little bit exclusively, it's a little bit our field. In other words, if we say that, Hulk 181 is the first appearance of Wolverine, that's good information, and if you didn't have that before, you'd want to have it, right? But if you want to say something like, I have my copy signed by Herb Trimp, or I have this one stored in box 311, or I bought it on this date for this amount of money, that isn't information we want to touch on yours. And so what we'll do is, if we need to say, that we've got some new information about that a particular issue, we'll put your information and our information together, and we'll stack them. We look for things that are the same between the two, and this is a little bit fuzzy. So for instance, if you say first appearance of Wolverine and somebody else says 1: Wolverine, which is a sort of a shorthand for that, we know that 1: character name is shorthand for first appearance of character name, which, by the way, another thing we look for is if you say first appearance Wolverine and someone says first appearance of Wolverine, we will look for those two things and try to make sure we only keep one of them. But and yes, it's the longer one. But anyway, we'll basically, anything else that you've got though that's substantially different than ours, it gets put in addition to our stuff. Now, if you say when you're downloading an update, it could be you have your notes exactly the way you like them. I mean, you don't want any of the foo that people tend to submit, saying that this is the Bobby Bajorquez cover. You don't want to say that it's the whatever else. Let's just say you have things exactly the way you want it. Well, if you do, one of the update options is to lock notes, which is to say, we're going to leave your notes alone, and if we have something new to say about that issue, we're not touching it. We figured your issue is exactly the way you want it, because that's why you hit lock notes, and we're just going to leave it alone. The only thing that will happen is if we have a brand new issue that wasn't in your database and it has notes, they'll come in with the notes because you didn't have that issue before. But if you had the issue before, we're not going to touch your notes. Okay. All right. So let's see here. And we'll get to the one other thing. So one of the other things I want to give you, well, heck with that. Let me go and finally do the demo, because otherwise I'm gonna something stupid will happen, like I'm gonna run out of power on my phone or something. So all right, so let's cut to the overhead. So here we have, and I'll show it just to show I'll show it as honestly as I can. And I know that this is a rotten demo like this, which is why I'm going to cut to something better. So you see before me, I have an iPhone in my left hand. I have an Android in my right hand. I could have rounded up a couple tablets from each variety as well. It all works the same way, different screen sizes. But anyway, the way you want to get the app is, first of all, have ComicBase Pro or Archive Edition. If you don't, you're kind of host. By the way, can I get this picture-in-picture thing to work? Is this going to happen if I go picture-in-picture on me with number 4? Is it going to do what I expect it to do? Let's find out. Oh, it didn't. Okay, well, it works between 1 and 2, but I'm gonna pocket. Oh, wait, no, there it goes, right on. Hey, I'm talking over myself. I'm feeling all sophisticated and stuff. Sweet. Okay, so, all right. So, what you want to do if you're on Android, you want to go to the Android Play Store. I'm sorry. Step 1 is you want to go ahead and have ComicBase Pro or Archive Edition. If you're using the free or the Express, sorry, it won't run for you. That's just the deal. Also, if your subscription is lapsed, this is one of the things that we do charge for because you're using our servers to run the app. So if your subscription is lapsed, renew. It's a wonderful time to do that. But anyway, if you have a working copy of ComicBase Pro Archive or Blu-ray Archive Edition, go to either the Play Store on Google Play or go to the App Store on the iOS App Store for Apple and download the ComicBase mobile app. This little guy looks like this. I'll go ahead and launch it over here, and now we'll cut to the camera that will actually show this, which in this case is my Chromecast, where it is mirroring my screen as we watch it right now. All right, so here's my fake database. Here is my real database. Yes, you guys will see I've actually lost $2,595 in value since February of this year. Never fear, though. That's because I sold that many comics. The market's actually been going up. My count of comics has been steadily going down, but the market's been going up, and I've been have less stuff to store, and it's worth more money. So if we can just keep that pattern going for another 56,000 comics or so, I could park my car in my own garage, and that'd be a cool thing. Anyway, if you have more than one collection, the first thing you want to do is click up here at the top and pick which database you want to work with. So in my case, I want to work with Pete's inventory database. And it gives you the grand total of what the whole thing's worth. You've got your change in value since a given time, and you can go ahead and reset those times if you want. This is the grand summary of how many books, comics, and let me see if I can get this going again. If I could get this going, I'm gonna feel so freaking cool. Oh man, look at this. You can see me and you can see my screen. I'm feeling cool. All right. So you can see the books. Strangely enough, the one thing you can't see is you can't see my finger pointing at the phone. So that's a difficult camera angle. Well, actually, can I do that? Oh, I'll bet you I can't. So if I go picture in picture, no, picture in picture is only with channel 1 right now because I'm just not that cool. All right. Anyway, I'll figure out my switcher eventually. It only came with an 1,800-page manual, so I'm sure I'll get through it one of these days. Anyway, so this is my list of books, comics, and magazines in my collection. You've also got a list of pre-computed reports. Anything that starts auto at the end is one that when I did a save to cloud and I told Sidekick to compute that report for me, those are all standard reports. You also will see different collection reports if you save them manually using save to the cloud. And by the way, in the new version of ComicBase, you can now have more than one set of reports, so you can name your reports as you're saving. So if you want to have a report which is just your DC comics or just my Marvel comics or just the ones I want to sell, you can save all those to the cloud now using ComicBase 2021. Anyway, the thing that started all the problem in the world is I was trying to go to the overview of my comics. Let's go to let's see, collection overview comic books, and I tried to go. I'm going to pull up that report over here if I can. And it took freaking forever. And watch, yeah, I'm having the same problem right now. Oh, what's happening is no, it's actually getting mirrored someplace else. All right, my bad. I'm going to ignore that part now because it doesn't matter. Okay, so The main things you can do with this one, if you've got any pre-computed reports, you can view them, and this is on the My Collection thing, or I can go in here, I can scan a comic. So the whole idea of this one is, and let me go ahead here, I'm actually going to exit the app, come in clean, because I did some foo ahead of time. Alright, give me just a sec. No, not the master. I want Pete's. There we are. Alright, let's get to the right place. I can go in, I can scan a comic, and yes, alright, it's activating my camera, which, by the way, finally, you can look around my office. So this is like the world's worst NDI camera right now. But yes, this is, and by the way, I will finally, because I've been promising this forever. This is the list of, this is the different Eagle Moss graphic novels put together in series that I managed to pick up over the last year, because this has become a little bit of an obsession for me. So when you get them, well, I'm 6 shy of having them all, but when you have 6 shy of all of them, that's what that looks like, in case you wondered. All right, back to what I meant to do. So what it's trying to do right now is it's asked me, okay, scan, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk over here to a pile of comic books I've got over here, and I'm just going to go point it at a random comic book. All right, and as soon as I stop shaking with both hands, all right, it kind of vibrates in your hand a little bit, and then it pulls up. Here's all the information on that particular comic book. You can see what it's worth, who did it, who drew it, and down at the bottom here you can see, you can say I want to add one to, and I could pick my database. Let's add one to Pete's inventory database and hit add, and then lather, rinse, and repeat. You could add more than one comic this way. Now, that said, this is exactly the sort of thing I don't want you doing on large numbers of comic books, because it will not make you happy. It's way too much work to do data entry of comic books this way. What you really want to do if you want to enter a lot of comic books is you want to come over here to the live screen. You want to pick up a barcode scanner like this. You want to go in ComicBase, and you want to just beep through the entire stack in about a minute. Far faster. Trust me, you're going to really, if you're not doing it that way, you're going to wish you had. The feature of doing comic books using the mobile app to scan them, honestly, it's meant just for those times when, like, I want to go and I want to look up, I'm looking at something on the road I don't recognize, I don't know what it is, but I want to know, what's it worth, so forth. Or I'm sitting there back at my hotel room after a comic show. I've got 20 comics I picked up during the day. Yeah, just to get them done with, I'll add them to my collection. It's not meant to go down to your 50,000 comic collection and slowly, with all the jitter of your hand and everything else, slowly enter comic after comic. You will be miserable if you try to enter comics that way. Don't do it. It's great for what it does, but don't make it do something it wasn't meant to. So that's all right. That's the caveat emptor on that one. All right, back to the app. All right, so the thing I want to do, though, is let's go back to our original problem. So we had the idea of Superman in Action Comics Archives. Now, what it used to do is if I start typing Superman in Action, whoops, well, helps if you spell action properly. Yeah, action starts with an A. Here's Action Comics Archives. So, all right, I'm clicking on it, and here, if you can see it, this is the whole magic trick right here. So anything you've got is now, it shows up just like in ComicBase. You've got the quantity you've got of the whole thing. As it turns out, on the return trip from Florida, I wasn't sure if I had number 5 or not, so it drove me crazy. Damn it, I'm buying the thing. I don't care if I'm wrong. Of course I was wrong. I already had it. So that's why I have quantity 2 of number 5. There it is. That's the one that, almost got away. I bought it twice. And now it's the one that I wish I hadn't bought twice. But anyway, but you can now see just right in the list, if I don't have it, it appears in this light gray over here. I can go ahead, click on it. I can add it from right there if I want. Or if I do have it, I can add additional copies, but it shows you the condition and quantity you've got right there. And I'll show you that again for like something else in my collection. Like let's look at Tomb of Dracula, which was just the best freaking comic series when I was a kid. Let me throw on the picture-in-picture so you can see me too. Cool. And this is my legit, collection of Tomb of Draculas, which has been picked over mightily since I was a kid. But yeah, so if I'm ever looking to rebuild my collection on those are the ones I need to, need to worry about. But anyway, that's the trick. Hopefully, and let me go do a quick check of the chat on this, because I mean that's the whole deal. Is the mobile app just got ridiculously more useful than it used to be, because now in more or less live time, it's showing not just what are all the comics in the world, but showing what you've got, and you don't need to go scrolling everywhere to find them. You can just load and scroll through them. As quickly as you can type something or scan its barcode, you can find out whether you've got it and add to the collection if you want. And that just it took a hell of a lot on the back end to make that happen, but it just really transforms the utility of that app. So I do hope you guys check it out. And if you do download it, I would ask one favor. Do go ahead and just like I don't like, I hate the idea of like, making your data conditional on us, getting a fee from you and stuff like that. I also, there's certain things in the online world I just don't like them, and I hate the part where like your apps get super needy on you, where like I download like a dice rolling app, so I can roll 2d20s or something, to compute double damage in something, But anyway, I hate it when apps, like after you've used them for 2 seconds, are like, oh, did you enjoy using the app? Please rate and subscribe. Rate and subscribe the whole thing. Honestly, I hate that stuff. It is absolutely the way to get a good rating on in an app store. We've never indulged in this one. As a result, our app store ratings, depending on the week, are miserable because the only people who ever bother commenting are the people who either thought it did something it didn't do, or they bought the free and it's like, how come this doesn't work, or they couldn't figure out their password, or whatever the thing is. So the only people who ever bother commenting are the people who are pissed off. The people who it worked fine for them just never say anything. So, but I will say, a little bit of a bummer for me when you just put a new version of an app out you're pretty jazzed about, and you're like, oh man, we got sort of better rating than that. So if you don't mind, hit the little rate review thing in the app store, and if it didn't suck for you, put in a rating that says, hey, this didn't suck for me, and it would just be a nice thing. So that's about it. It doesn't make us any more or less money. It's just honestly, it's just a pat on the back after you kind of move heaven and earth to make a little trick happen. So hopefully that's not too much trouble. All right, let's see here. Okay, let me get back to a couple things in the chat just to clear them out. We'll take it from there. Okay, Andre says, and let me get the keyer up again here. This is one of the things that I do need to watch out for, because when I'm using my Magic Stream Deck to do all my switching and everything, it doesn't keep switching the key off as I go from place to place, and but now I have to remember to keep turning it on, otherwise I can't do things like having that little overlay that goes across so you can see your own comments. Andre says, when we jump a week of updates, do we lose that week of data, or is it updating with those on the next week? Updates are always, they always, include everything in the entire database. The one thing they don't include is pictures. So if you don't have Sidekick set up, and you forget to, it's a really good idea of Sidekick just doing your updating for you, because that way you never forget. There's nothing to remember. You just leave your computer on, and it just updates everything for you automatically. But if you like doing your updates manually through the program, if you forget a week, we're not going to give you last week's pictures, because honestly, there's just too many. I think last week, I want to say we had 3,188 pictures were part of that week alone, if you had the archive edition of what we were pushing down the pipe. And so we can't afford to go back and shove just gigabyte upon gigabyte to everybody every week. It would bury our servers. So you really want to have you hit that when it comes out. This is actually a really good time to go through a little bit of setup. We'll use this as a commercial for going to the setup on the whole thing. And I'm going to try to be cool again and set up the picture-in-picture so you can see me as well. All right, so let me go ahead and launch ComicBase. All right, and by the way, and I'll describe why it is I have apparently an unnatural fascination for Jim Ballant over here in a minute when we talk about Atomic Avenue. There's a point, and not just because Jim Ballant really loves the female form. Anyway, so as you guys might know, if you want to launch Sidekick, come up down here, and by the way, I just reinstalled before the show, so let me go ahead and get him kicked off manually. All right, so find my mouse. There we are. So Sidekick lives down here by your clock. Now, if you don't see him right down here, go ahead and click on the up arrow you've got down there, and that shows all the hidden icons. right click, click on Sidekick. If he's just launching the very first time, he takes a second. He tries to do some setup stuff right when your machine first starts up. If you guys remember that updating the ComicBase stats thing that happens with new databases, Sidekick tries to do that some number of seconds after he's first launched, so that you guys don't need to wait on shutdown to ever do that stuff. That became one of Sidekick's new jobs. But if for some reason you're launching Sidekick without just restarting your machine, give him a moment to do his thing, otherwise he might be a little busy. Anyway, so Sidekick is managing 3 databases for me right now. This is my database, this is my copy of our master database, this is my copy of my fake database for the live streams. And for all these ones, he will, update the content every week, he'll check for new sales and purchases, etc, etc, etc. Very first thing you want to do when you get Sidekick going, and Sidekick is really the key to making all this mobile stuff work, is go up here under the settings under here, the cog on the right. Make sure you choose the databases you want Sidekick to manage. Now, for most of you, it's just going to be your ComicBase database inside your ComicBase databases folder, and it's going to default to looking right at that one, but you do need to manually add it yourself, because we don't want to be doing any management of your stuff that you don't want done. So we are making you, with this version of Sidekick, we do make you the very first time choose the databases explicitly that you want us to manage. But make sure you've got at least one showing there, and at which point you'll see all the buttons will light up and you're able to do stuff with them. Next thing I would do is go here under schedule and this is pretty much close to the default schedule, is that, in the middle of the night, 1 a.m., he's going to start trying to check for my updates. He's going to, he doesn't post my sales right now, but if I wanted to have him saved to the cloud or compact databases, he would do all this stuff in the middle of the night. All I got to do is have ComicBase closed and leave my computer on, and he just does all the job for me. The next thing I would do when I'm checking this is I would click on Save to Cloud and go ahead and have ComicBase say what databases you want to have him, what reports, if any, you want him to create for you. Now, honestly, it may be you don't need any anymore, because this used to be the only way you could look at your whole collection as you went. I'm probably gonna, I had some of these checked off just to stress test the program. Realistically, I'm probably gonna uncheck at least a couple of these ones, because don't need them. I mean, it's one thing, it's nice to kind of like browse through a list of your whole collection, but to see whether I've got a certain issue or not, honestly, the new title lookup is going to do it more efficiently than the report ever did, so that's probably something I'm going to do. And then the last thing is whether or not you want to have it automatically sync anything you've got marked as wanted to Atomic Avenue, so that if you mark it as something, in the program there's a field called wanted, and so if you tell it that you've got it wanted, what it will do then, if you've got this checked, is it will mark that as a item on your wish list on Atomic Avenue. So that's, that's a cool thing. And you'll get notified on Atomic Avenue when somebody posts, new issues of the thing you're looking for. Anyway, so that's about it. So the only other thing you got to do then, once you set up that schedule, is exit ComicBase, because these buttons, you'll notice, do not light up if ComicBase is open. It can't do a lot of these tasks if the database is open, because databases, as we talked about this a number of times before, databases are only kind of in like a quiescent state. They're only all in one place, all in your computer's memory, or all on disk. That only happens, they're only all on disk when your database is closed. So make sure the database is closed, otherwise we simply will refuse to start trying to do these other tasks. Anyway, so then if you then go ahead and click Save to Cloud, and it takes a few minutes, so I'm not going to do it right now. It'll compact your database and send it up to the cloud. Then there's a process on our side called Jimmy. It's our reporter, because Jimmy Olsen, the reporter, will go. He has a list of people's databases that have been posted. He opens up each one in turn, generates any reports that need to be generated for them, syncs up your online database so that you can look at it with the mobile app, and then he's done. Anyway, so that's all you gotta do to make all this magic happen. The trick of this, and this is where I'm finally gonna make the segue back to answering some of your other user questions. The first trick, though, is it starts with getting ComicBase 21.0.1.1600 or later. Which version of ComicBase you're running? If you don't know, go under Help, go to About ComicBase, and it will tell you. You're looking for this number right here. And that last number, you want that to be 1600 or later, because that's when we put all the things in to make all the magic happen. If you aren't running that version, It's going to become an official update in the next couple weeks, but if you want to get it right now, easiest thing to do is go under Setup menu, go to Preferences, and I'll actually switch that screen so you can see what I'm doing. So go to Setup, go to Preferences, and make sure you've checked off Check for Interim Updates. When you do that, then, every time you check for updates, it'll tell you anytime we've put in any of the interim and non-official releases. And so this so far is an interim release. We haven't forced it on all the users of the system yet, but you guys can get it early if you just do that and check for updates, and then it'll give you the very latest version of ComicBase, and you'll be able to do its thing. All right, now, after that long and circuitous route, let's finally go back to answering the question of, hey, I downloaded some pictures, it says they're bad pictures, and if you did that in a long title, you know, if you ever had bad pictures, it tries to go to each bad picture in turn and build the thumbnail for it, which then gives an error saying, hey, this is a bad picture. Do you want me to delete it? You know, and clean up the thumbnail? In which case, the right answer is always yes, because it's an invalid picture, for God's sake. You know, it's a garbage file. But anyway, in build 1658, something like that, something that happened in the last couple weeks, we wound up inadvertently for a couple hours having the update pointing to a place where, you know, there's a problem with the server or something, but it was causing anyone who downloaded during those couple hours to get an enormous number of bad picture downloads until they re-downloaded. And so we were then left with another problem with, well, geez, we don't want to piss off our best customers who have just downloaded because they were anxious to get on the newest thing. They just downloaded a bunch of bad picture images. You know, now we could either wait till they all called us and say, well, download the update again, it'll make it all better, or we could have it so the program automatically handles that issue in a way it probably should handle it from the start, which is to say, look, if it's just a bad file, I mean, if it's just, this is an invalid picture file, just delete the thing and do not bug the user. And so it does that now. And so it won't do it if it doesn't like the picture, it won't do it, but if it's just a corrupted file, it just deletes the corrupted file, and it doesn't bug you, and you don't get a million errors. It just cleans up after itself, and then if you download the pictures again, they're all good. So that's one of the minor features of the new thing. All right, let's see here. Aaron says, is there a way to limit which reports are listed for view on ComicBase app? Hopefully I covered that one. That was the same idea where the ComicBase app is going to see anything that you can see in your web account. So if you don't want to save a particular report to the web, don't save it there. And if you want it to, you can always uncheck any reports that are not of interest to you. Matter of fact, you have to check them to start with. So by default, the ComicBase Sidekick doesn't have anything checked. So you check the ones that are of use to you. But honestly, for those of you using the new web app, if, like me, you're suddenly realizing, you know what, I'm never going to view my price list again on the app anymore. It used to be the only way I could see all my stuff. But if it turns out you're never going to do that again, uncheck it. Save our server a little bit of work. Jimmy will thank you. Let me see what else here. Richard Scott says, I was reading the Shrimp Hulk at the moment. Sweet. All right, so Aaron says, for instance, I don't need all the magazine reports. Yeah, we don't have a way to limit it by type. So if you say I want a collection report, you're going to get the collection report for all types of goods you've got. But if you don't need a certain type of report in general, like if you don't need a collection report, you can uncheck collection report. Maybe it's something we should think about in the future. All right, or as if we're watching a kid in a candy shop. That is true. Okay, so let's see here. Yearbase says, when I use Save to Cloud, I notice it will optimize database. If so, can I avoid using the separate optimized database in ComicBase Sidekick 2021? Yeah, you can if you want. It's the idea on that one is that Sidekick is meant to basically be doing his thing when you're not doing anything with your computer. So the idea is, you know, it can do stuff that you don't really care about right now. Like, so I could, for instance, have it so it optimizes my database every day, and I might only back up once a week. So they're on two different schedules, so maybe you want to leave them both checked. That said, we are always going to optimize the database before we send it to the cloud. So once a week, it's always going to get optimized, whether you like it or not, because honestly, we need to... what optimizing does is it has the effect of minimizing the file size of the database as much as is possible. so that we don't waste more of our precious server time transmitting things to the cloud than we need to. And so that's why we always kick off the optimize before we do a save to cloud. You know, so one thing I would suggest though, and this has actually become the new setting in the program, is I no longer, this is a bonus tip here, go under setup, go to preferences, and unless you have a strong reason to, go ahead and change your optimize automatically when exiting to never. We used to be, back in ComicBase 2017 and earlier, it was really important to optimize your database a lot, yet it was called compact and verify. It was doing the same kind of operation. It was a little different in some fine points, but it was really important for the integrity of the database that you did it a lot. The new database, SQLite, does not need this in anything like the same way the old one did. So go ahead and save yourself the 20 seconds or minute or whatever it takes. Go ahead and turn that off to never, because as long as you're using Sidekick, it's going to get optimized once a week when you back up your database anyway. So save yourself some time. I would say turn that off unless if you're one of those guys who really likes making sure everything is absolutely locked down all the time and it's always good. Then I guess leave it on. But I honestly, I deal with more jank databases than any man on the planet because we're always dealing with everyone's testing database somewhere else. I turned it off. So anyway, that's the thing. Okay, let me see here. Pete, is what you did finding specific books reading data from the CBD file or a report? If I understand the question, what it's doing is it's when you're loading it in from the app, it's literally querying that table we built of your user there's a thing called users databases, which is for every user and for every database that user has, we're storing off the inventory that's in that database. We don't store everything in the database, so if you don't have it marked as in stock, we don't store anything about it, because honestly we don't want to store 10 trillion copies of the data we've already got, which is our master database. We care about the stuff that you actually has marked in stock. So if for some insane reason you really care about information that you don't own, which isn't information that is in our master database already, if that somehow is a situation for you, then this will not be optimal for you, in which case I guess still rely on your, I don't know, because all the reports are report in stock anyway. I guess at that point you still want to save custom reports up to the web and know where to see your stuff. But I had somebody once who was using ComicBase for something really strange, like cataloging like action figures or birds or insects or something, but they had an enormous amount of information they added to their database about things they didn't own. And they wanted to be able to see that, and so, well, okay, you're going to need to actually mark that as in stock or do some other way of reporting that. This will not do that for you automatically. But for the other things, what it's doing when you are viewing on the mobile app is it's literally firing queries up as you type, saying, okay, for this guy with this database, and it's done all the security tokening stuff and everything else. It's saying, all right, what's he got for that matches the letters, we've typed so far, Tomb of Dra, and it's saying, okay, well, he's got some Tomb of Draculas, you want that one? And then when you look at Tomb of Dracula, it says, oh, here's all the things we've got, and it merges those in with the things that we know exist, and that's how you get to see a list of both the things you've got and the things you don't have, which is really what you want in those cases, because most of us are trying to fill in holes, right? All right. Let's see here. Mine only shows the issues of title in search. I don't see quantity stock. Rob, so what's going to do? And let me bring up the mobile cam again. So when you're looking at a title, and let's go back to what's another comic I've got something of. We'll go back to Tomb of Dracula. What the heck? Tomb of Dra. Okay, so when I'm looking right now in my title view, when I click on Tomb of Dracula, you'll notice right at the top here, everything I've got that is, everything I've got over here that I don't own any of, it shows blanks underneath. It grays the title, it shows blanks underneath. If I do have it, it tells me what condition I've got it in, and it tells me what quantity I've got it in the list. Now, when I click on it though, it's not, right now it doesn't tell you that same information again. What it's doing right here, if you clicked on it, is you're getting ready to add another one. It's not going to give you more detail on your issue right now. I wanted to throw this out there and get some feedback on, well, did you guys need to get additional detail on the issue you already had on your thing, or was knowing that you've got it and what condition, is that enough? Because one thing we're always fighting on mobile apps is we have very limited space and a huge number of weird form factors that we're dealing with. And so it's like, well, what is the least amount of information I can show you and still have it be useful? I do think it'd be interesting at some point if we let the tablet versions and the iPhone versions start bifurcating a little bit more, so that if you were doing this on a tablet, that you'd be able to see more detailed information about the information you've got, for instance. That might be something that's of interest to us. Right now, I just want to get the basic trick working, and that's why we don't show you the same detail again when you're in this thing right here. And you'll notice also that down at the bottom here, this is the quantity that I'm adding. It's not the quantity I've got already. It's how many quantities I'm adding and what condition I'm adding them in. Okay, so that's what that is. All right, back to the main camera view. Is there a way to mark a series as complete? No, not exactly. Give me a little bit more on that, David. I'd be curious on seeing what your exact thoughts are on that. We are trying to make it. I guess what I'm wondering is, where would you want to see that? Would you like maybe in the title view? Would you want to see the title marked as in a different color, or have a checkbox next to it if you had all the regular issues of that title? And if that was the case, if I'm following where I hope you're going with that one, if that's the case, how do you people feel about, I've got it, but I don't have that weird variant, or I don't have that second printing? Would you want to see, would you want to be able to set conditions for that? But that'd be a really interesting idea for a future add-on for this one. Yeah, Greg says, never seen Jim draw an A cup. Jim Ballant is a lovely man. I mean, he really is. Jim clearly likes ladies. Jim likes ladies with a certain form. But you know what? There are worse vices in the world. So let me talk. I'm going to use that as a very, a very lighthearted way of introing what else I've been up to lately. So we got the mobile stuff working on. If you guys have seen, well, I guess unless you're on the staff call, you haven't seen me, in the last couple weeks. But if I looked really, really hangdog and everything else, it's because we are also getting very, very close now. I've been pulled into the Atomic Avenue end of things, and we are getting very, very close to releasing it's not a complete rewrite of the system, but it's a really big upgrade to Atomic Avenue. And finally, books and magazines are going to be going live. I am authorized to say that much. So you'll see a re-architecture of the system in terms of how it presents at the start. You'll see separate sections for comics and magazines. You're going to see a lot of different. It's going to look quite different in terms of how the different categories go. The shopping is going to be, still shopping. It's still, most of what you do is you say, hey, I wonder if anyone's got any Tomb of Draculas, and then you type Tomb of Dracula, and then you see all the people in the world who have copies of Tomb of Dracula, and you start filling in your stuff. That part's largely the same, but it will do much, much more for you. And one of the ways I've been testing it is I have been buying books from myself, because I have to be able to test with real live data on things, and the only person I can do this from 37 times and not piss off everybody doing it is when I buy it from me. And so on the test system, I've been buying Art of Jim Ballant, Magic in Black and White, just because alphabetically it's the first book in my collection. And so you'll also see, if you're there on day one, you'll also probably notice it's probably a top seller on the system, because something like 37 copies of it have been bought on the system in the last day alone. So anyway, that's a thing. Look for that very shortly. Every time I think we're just about ready to call a wraps on the reno on it, we say, hey, but what if we did this? And then suddenly I've got another week of work to do on that. So anyway, that's coming up, and that's going to be pretty exciting. So it's long overdue, and I'm glad that we're finally getting that rolling. All right. Other things going on here. Let's see here. Not sure, but there are custom checkboxes on this level. Use one of those to check when it's complete. Yeah, Steve, it's a good idea. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, I see how it goes. Sorry, I'm learning about my switcher right now. So, all right. So I can't have. Yeah, this makes sense. I can't have a key to show the green screen question of this, and at the same time do a picture-in-picture of myself, because that'd be weird. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, there are custom checkboxes at the title level. You could mark off complete, and then you could say find all the complete ones or find all the incomplete ones. It might be cool though if we had something that was automatic. All right, so let's see here. And Greg also points out you could also do a report of just what you're missing. True. And a lot more thing. I just realized quantities there, but it's very light. Must be due to dark mode. Need to do more investigation. Interesting, because yeah, we're just using the standard. We're not coloring any of the components. We're using whatever your defaults are on your phone. So if you're using dark mode or you're using different fonts or things like that, we're not overriding them in any way to do our own styling on things. So if you have overridden the styles, maybe you can override them to be a little more or less legible. And Greg points out, weekly PSA, don't forget we have dedicated thread on the CV message board. Excellent. Oro says, wonderful, can finally easily see what I've got on the, thank you, and thanks, Oro. I'm glad we could finally make that happen. Okay, let's see here. And Robert says he tried light mode and it looks good. What about multiple? About the multiple error boxes. Yeah, so John, if you run the latest version of ComicBase, you'll just never see them. You won't get the stacked error boxes anymore. So just make sure you're running version like 1670 or later, and that goes away. And let's see. Andre says, is there a way to get a report that has a missing cover or no cover at all? Yes, and it's weird. What you want to do is you want to go in ComicBase, first of all, as prep work to make sure whether you've got it or not. Because in ComicBase, we do a thing called, I mean, the official programming term is lazy loading, but we do a thing where we don't go looking for a picture until you really need it. So we've just passed 700,000 pictures in ComicBase right now. We do not want to go looking for 700,000 pictures until someone asked for every single one of those. Well, one thing you can do to ask for every single one of those is go into your file menu, go to File Tools, and let me go ahead and pull up my picture-in-picture again. I'm getting quite... I hope this looks cool to you guys. I mean, maybe I'm just a weird person looking off the side in the corner. I can't really tell. But anyway, go up to the file menus, go to Rebuild Lists, and then choose Pictures Files List. Slow. And yeah, it is slow. It'll take a couple hours. But what that will do is it'll go to every issue in the entire database and say, you got a picture? If so, and it stores off ahead of time, how big is that picture? What are its dimensions? And so forth. When that's done, two things will happen. One, your picture loading will get a little bit faster throughout the entire program because there's less work for it to do because it's already done it to figure out whether you've got all those pictures. But then the other thing that becomes possible is it becomes possible then to do a find. If you then go down, I would do it, if it were me, I would do it as an advanced find, but you can also do it then as a item fields where, I think, yes, if you then do an issue thing for picture file size, and if you say, if picture file size is greater than 0, you've got the list of the ones that you have in stock, and if you go for, if it's equal to 0, then you got the list of the ones you don't have. And at that point you can find and export that report in all the usual ways. All right. And Lance says, for completing the series, and like get out of picture-in-picture mode here, get back to myself. If you would it be a simple way to add checkmark to each tile so the user could decide whether they have completed to their satisfaction? Yeah, if you did want to do that, and I'll go ahead and show that again, you would go into just double-click on any issue, and then go edit title information. You could make one of these boxes down here be completed, you know, and then if you check that off, then that applies across the entire title, and then it would say, you know, just find me all my completed series or find me all my uncompleted series, and it would give you that list. But you can do that already with the custom fields. All right. Let's see here. Greg says, let me go switch back to that camera. Greg says, just an FYI, I expect a lot of prose novel series, Doctor Who novel have been entered in the database where each item is listed as a TPB with the actuals are actually MMPBs. Could be. You know, we try to watch out for that. So if you guys don't know what the hell are we talking about there, so trade paperbacks are. I actually don't have an example of one in close hand, but they're kind of like the nicer paperbacks that you're used to seeing. You know, if you ever see like a graphic novel done by a comic publisher, that's what's called trade paperback. Anything you'd see in Barnes and Noble these days is going to be a trade paperback. But especially for loads and loads of years, you know, it used to be when you could go down to the local, you know, bookstore and, you know, get like 5 used books for $1, you know, or all the used books were like, you know, in this, you know, are 50 cents each, or you'd have a little, you know, number written on the inside in pencil. They were printed on this rough as hell paper. They were always about, you know, about this size by this size. You know, and they're called mass market paperbacks, and they were mass market because they were done as cheaply as you possibly could, because they were meant to be consumed, and they were great. I mean, honestly, it's where all my Ray Bradbury books, you know, that I ever grew up and fell in love with, are all in that format. So I mean, I wouldn't, you know, trade these for the world, but you know, having a nicer edition doesn't, you know, put the memories back. But anyway, we are trying, you know, when we get things, to differentiate. I mean, the default when you enter a new book is the defaults to trade paperback, because that's the default these days. But when you do go back in time and you look at some of those old Prisoner or Star Trek or Doctor Who books and things like that, yeah, if you are entering those, it's a good idea to be careful to try to note that the binding is actually MMPB, mass market paperback, and not trade paperback. Trade paperback really does connote the more modern and really quite nicer paperback binding, and of course hardcovers are hardcovers, so you know that. All right, let's see. Would economies consider merging the Canadian price tiles into their larger American price tile counterparts as variants? Probably not. The reason is because the pricing tends to be so different about them. Or in like the UK titles tend to be the same kind of situation. Is the distribution angles and how they're valued as collectors tends to be so different. I mean, they really had their own histories, and a lot of times with the Canadian ones, they even if, like, say, the Canadian versions of the Avengers, even when they were the same number, they weren't, you know, issue 146 wouldn't necessarily be even the same storyline that the American 146 had. They just knew they had to get a 146 out this month, and so it might be a completely different story. Sometimes they had the same covers but different stories. Sometimes they had the same stories but different covers. They really were quite divergent on that end of things, and so that's why we just made the decision to track them as their own titles. So yeah, it's one of those things. When you do have something where it really is just like a price variant on something like say the Whitman, sometimes there are like specific issues of different titles that like would have like a Whitman price variant or a Mark Jewelers variant, where it was all, you know, similar kinds of stuff, the similar kinds of covers. It was the same contents, but, you know, one would have different markings on it or be distributed through a different channel. Those are typically done as variants within the overall channel. But where the title's history varies dramatically, those tend to be traded as their own title. Okay. All right, well, I think that's going to probably wrap it for now, guys. It's I've been babbling nonstop for, I guess, over an hour. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. And once again, if you haven't done it before, please hit the like and subscribe button on the YouTube channel. I very much appreciate it. I am going to wrap it for now and go out and have a beer on this beautiful day, and I hope you're all well. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.